as if mine are ever short or little. About concrete onto concrete. So there is a specific reason why I'm doing this, and I'm going to go into a bit of a spiel for those of you that want to know. The plumber, when he came in here months and months and months ago, I didn't do any of this stuff, he did. So he set his drain probably about 3/4 of an inch higher than the finished floor. So arguably, that wasn't kind of a fat poo, that was an intentional situation that he did. Because this pre-slope notion, this idea of a pre-slope being about 3/4 of an inch right there, and then as it kind of moves out to this area, you're about 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches or so with the pre-slope. Anybody that watches my channel on a regular knows that I don't believe in pre-slopes. I don't believe they function as intended, and even if they did, it's a mood issue nowadays because everybody that I know is waterproofing their entire shower, including their pan. And because they're waterproofing everything, and sometimes they're even foam pans, it's irrelevant. If water can't get in, a pre-slope doesn't matter. So therefore, weep holes don't matter. None of that stuff matters anymore because water will never see your mortar. So for that reason alone, I don't do a pre-slope, so I have to fill that gap. So I had a couple choices here. One of them is I could do self-leveling compound. And self-leveling compound is an awesome product. I love it a lot. It's about $30 a bag. So it's a little pricey, and I think their parameter on that is about 1.5 inches, and I have less than that, so it would be appropriate. And then everything would be level up to the edge of that drain. However, the reason I'm not going to do self-leveling is because it's $30 a bag and concrete is $5 and change a bag. So, you know, a couple, 2 or 3 bags of this, you know, kind of, yeah, it's better, cheaper anyway. But also, and more to the point, if I wanted to do a little bit of a slope prior, right, with concrete I could do that. Self-leveling, obviously I can't. So with my concrete, I can manipulate it in such a way that I can do a little bit of a pitch. For no other reason, I don't know, kicks and giggles, because no water is going to see my pan, so the pre-slope is irrelevant. But I just figured the concrete. Now, having said that, I've already, about maybe an hour ago, I put some primer on here. So those of you that don't know, when you're doing concrete to concrete, you have to use this primer. And it doesn't have to be this one. There's a whole bunch of manufacturers out there that make this primer, but it allows for concrete to actually stick to concrete rather than have an issue later on with it disadhering or cracking or this or that or whatever. So I'm gonna put a couple of bags in. I feel really weird about doing this. A lot of people have asked me on previous videos where I've done what this plumber did, you know, where I poured concrete into the trough that I made, and I pour concrete around there and all that stuff and tap it down, and yeah, and they're like, you didn't show the process. And I'm like, really? You want to know how to set concrete? Because I'm not a mason per se. I do a lot of masonry type of work. So I'm going to show that. And I'm going to show that because I'm going to put my camera, I'm going to stick it somewhere up here and this and that. And so probably, I don't know if it shows my face or not. Oh, another thing too. This is really weird. This is really weird. When other tile guys come on video and they're doing this and they're going, and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and 80% of the time they're on camera. I've never done that. My channel's never been about me. It's been about my work. So it's rare that I show my face on, but you might see it on this video. So the concrete that I'm using, just so that you know, which I don't know if it matters or not, it's a fast setting concrete mix. And the reason I chose this, not because I really care if it's fast setting or not, but I know that the aggregate, the rocks in there are really small, as opposed to normal concrete, which, you know, the rocks can be larger. And so I have a small area to cover, so I don't want the rocks getting in the way when I start tapping this down. So I have a couple of different tools that I use, and probably an old level that I'll use to kind of like screed it out and all that stuff and tap it down. Yeah. So I don't want to go into a total explanation. I don't use a bucket to mix it in. I could, but I don't. I prefer to do it with the shovel and hoe. So that's what I'm going to go through. I'm going to get that concrete mixed up, and once I do that, and you'll see how the mix is. It's not really tough. It's not really runny. It's somewhere in between. And so I'll just slap it in there, and then I'll start tapping it down and all that stuff, and you'll kind of see that process. And I don't know why you're watching, if you're still watching. Alright, as I do with my mortar bed, I usually do by hand at first, just as a beginning phase. With the glove, a little easier to push back a little bit of it, kind of where you need it at, or you think you're going to need it at, prior to getting the tools out. Don't get caught up on the tools. Remember, you're the best tool out there. What you don't want to get into, especially with fast setting concrete, you don't want to get into, oops, I don't have enough. So, very quickly, oh, another thing, always keep more on hand, keep more on hand than what you think you're going to need. Always. Because it would suck if I didn't have that third bed, and I needed it right now. So that goes with anything. Mortar than set. Always have more than what you think you need.
With fast setting concrete, what you're going to find, it heats up because it's starting to cure as soon as it hits moisture, and what you're feeling with that heat is a curing process. That's why time is of the essence to make sure it's everywhere you want it to be and not where you don't. Toward the end, what happens, your water starts to float up to the surface, which is cool because that is a finishing stage where you can actually make it pretty if you want to. I know a lot of people are into the look of something, and for that reason, if you wait toward the end, instead of fighting yourself during the process, wait toward the end as that water starts to kind of come up through. That's at a point you can make it as pretty as you want it. Although, I will say this, function over style anytime. The more practical something is, rather than having it pretty, the better off you are, and there's no harm, no foul. I think taking pride in what you do, whether somebody's going to see it or not, is kind of the reason I think us tilers and other trades, carpenters and such, always trying to do an outstanding job. Because I appreciate it when I go back and I tear out something that's been done a long time ago, and I see how they did it, and I'm like, wow, they were really good at what they did. Because I know the process. I know what they had to do to make it that way. But at the end of the day, when everything goes the way you want it, regardless of how it looks, that's what matters the most. And if this was normal concrete, you would have a little bit more time to spend making this pretty, but there's going to be a liner going on this anyway, hiding all of this nice pretty work. So that's that part. Now, throwing a level on it. If you notice, no level popped up until just now. So that is level going across. That is level going across. Level. Level. Yeah, about a 16th off. Not bad. About a 16th off. Still not bad. Level. And then, coming down this direction, it's going back that way a little bit for my pre-slope that I don't do. It's going back that way a little bit. It's funny, people are going to get after me. Going back that way, it's actually about the exact same distance, except this one. This side, little high spot. A little bit of a high spot. Oh, there we go. All right, so let me do the long level too. That is 1/16 of an inch off, and that is about an 1/8 of an inch. Ah, no, it's not. It's a rock. The rock that's in the way. Yeah, that's about a 1/16 of an inch off too. So if I were to do a pre-slope, which I do not do, this would be my pre-slope. This would be my final product prior to setting the shower pan liner. And the shower pan liner, what am I looking for? Looking for a sponge. The shower pan liner would go on the second locking flange right down here. So for that reason, you just kind of clear off a little bit of that gum. A little easier to do when it's wet than tomorrow, because the liner is going to sit right on top of that flange, and then this locking flange is going to go on top of the liner. And that's basically it. I mean, for whatever it's worth, like I said, a couple of videos that I had before, people were like, oh, you didn't show how to how to pour the concrete. So for those people, if they came back on my channel, now you can actually see the work being done, which I don't show a lot. I guess I probably should. I know it's kind of a big thing on YouTube to show people working, but just like I don't show my face, you know, my channel is not about me. It's about information. If it was about me, I'd have a vlog. Maybe I should have a vlog. maybe I should turn my channel into Star Tile's Daily Life, or come on board with Star Tile, or I don't know, something silly like that. I don't know how many people would actually be interested in my daily life. It's pretty mundane. So little final touches is all I'm doing right here. Putting a little bit more, I know I'm off camera right now, but all I'm doing is putting a little more concrete into the corner. I just felt like it needs a little bit more, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't. I mean, like I said, pan liner, waterproofing, all that stuff makes everything below this part here irrelevant. So for that reason, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, even a couple of little voids that are happening as the water settles, coming up to the surface. Yeah, I could fill those in, but you know, ultimately you're kind of chasing your tail. You have to, as I said, this is setting up inside of here already. Highly suggested, there's a little bit of wet, highly suggested that you start doing your cleanup at this point before everything gets too difficult to work with. Yeah, little areas like this, I don't know why we're so focused on stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah. And have a lot of little different tools in your toolbox. I use that phrase, grain of salt, because I got a bunch of toolboxes. All kinds of stuff, more stuff than I probably ever use on a normal basis, but you know, there is a final result. As I said from the get-go, you are your best tool. None of this matters, none of this matters, none of this matters if you don't do the correct thing on doing whatever you're doing. This happens to be the easy part. Easy meaning, you know, all of 10-15 minutes to do this. Tomorrow, after this is dry, I'll be able to put my pan liner down and go through the same process I just went through with my mortar on top of the pan liner, and let that dry. And in the meantime, I got to do a bunch of stuff on this outside floor. See that crack? So I fill that crack in eventually. So this is going to be another video where I don't know if I'm going to do a video on this. I'm doing self-leveler. If you see over there, I got self-leveler, which I was going to do here, but I didn't. But I have to do it on here because this is a very complicated shower tile mesh type of thing on the floor, and it must be level. So I filled in the cracks there, and I'm going to use a crack preventer, which is Red Guard, on top of that, and do self-leveler and blah 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 blah. A lot of stuff going on, but that's the end of this video. Hope you learned something. Hey, if you enjoyed that video and you learned something, consider being a Patreon member. $5, $10, $15 a month would help me greatly produce more videos. I make nothing from YouTube at all. If you're gonna call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.